talking to some teachers. In this old classroom, I'm searching for the spark. Computers hum softly, lining up the dark. Questions in my mind, code up on the screen. Learning how to teach a machine to dream.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of AGI Schools Out, where we are talking about how to prepare students for their future rather than our past. And today I'm thrilled to be joined with a teacher and edtech superhero, Thomas Hummel, who has developed Eduaide.ai. Thomas, you're out of Maryland, correct?
Yeah, I'm over on the eastern shore of Maryland, right on the Chesapeake Bay. So kind of a unique culture, but an awesome place to live for sure.
Well, introduce yourself a little bit, and then I'll dive into it, because I went to a conference in Virginia and a conference in San Fran this year, and the cultures are different.
Yeah. So, my name is Thomas Hull. I'm the founder of Eduaide.ai, and what Eduaide is a tool used where we use AI to help teachers save time and create higher quality lessons. And if you've seen tools like Magic School or School AI or Frisk or any of those tools, that was sort of our original thesis that we came up with, is that teachers can prompt these things and create educational material. And so this project started in a Title I school here on the eastern shore of Maryland. Myself and my other co-founder, Thomas Thompson, we were living the problems that teachers were having every single day. And we just decided, how can we do something to help them? And so from that came Eduaide. And, we've been super blessed. When you create a space, when you kind of create a tool, we had awesome growth. And that sort of just enabled us and kickstarted us to this mission that we were able to do. And so I'm still in the classroom teaching. Just had a baby, so I'm on paternity leave, but I'm still employed as a full-time teacher on the eastern shore of Maryland. So pretty awesome to be able to do this. We've had 1 million teachers signed up on our product, and we're in over 130 countries getting used regularly.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations, baby boy, baby girl.
Yeah, 2 boys, 2 little boys.
2 little boys.
Yeah, thank you.
That's hard when they're toddlers, but during the teenage years, sometimes boys are a little easier. I have 1 boy and 3 girls I've raised, and girls are amazing, but they are definitely eye-rolling challenges when they're teenagers. So
yeah, I coach a girls soccer team, a high school girls soccer team, and they always give me a hard time. They're like, "Oh, you're such a girl dad" and stuff, and so it's funny. But I got 2 little boys, and something else somebody just told me recently was my wife and I went from playing zone defense to playing man-to-man now with the second one. So it's really funny. It's like, here we are just kind of covering all duties with the toddler, like you said. So
very true. Very true. So, I listened to you on another podcast not too long before we met here, and it made me think of something that a friend of mine always says, which nobody really cares what you know until they know how much you care. And so your backstory to becoming a teacher and the influence of your grandfather on your life is a pretty cool story. You want to tell a little bit of that?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thanks for mentioning that. I grew up in a small town in western Pennsylvania and spent so many days, every single day after school with my grandpa. We'd on the porch and just staying, and it's like a really small community, and people would walk by and stuff, but everybody knew my grandpa. And he was a teacher in this community for a long time. He served in some political roles for a little bit too, and he was a coach. And, I've never really been great at anything. And when I was a young teenager, kind of coming out of high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I just knew that impact that a teacher could make. And I just knew I wanted to do good. And that was sort of the premise of what I wanted to do in my life at that point, because I was pretty lost. And so my grandpa was the teacher and coach, and here I am being a teacher and coach. I just I actually went home and gave my the graduation speech at my alma mater, my high school, Grove City, Pennsylvania, this last year. And it's just sometimes there's people that influence you in life that you wish could see you now, and it's just like one of those things. It's like if my grandpa could see all the good that we've been able to do, I just know I'd make him so proud. It's pretty awesome to be in somebody's footsteps like that.
That is really cool. And can I ask how old you are? Is that rude?
No, 32. Okay. Yeah. Not the youngest anymore, but I still feel pretty young. I stay active and stuff. Yeah, my grandpa, he was a World War II veteran, and he lived until he was 90 now. So it's like, this is unbelievable.
I don't know. That's kind of becoming a magic age. So Mackenzie Price, who started Alpha School, I think was right around 32 when she did that. And the Androl CEO, I don't know if you know who Androl is, but they're like a major defense baller. Yeah, Palmer, the mullet, Bermuda shorts and flip-flops wearing multi-billionaires. I love him, right? But I think that's about how old he is as well. So that's becoming a ripe age. And I do think these companies are starting to really see the value in younger people and the mindset that they have. That's not what can't we do, but what can we do?
Yeah. I think when you have an opportunity to grow with a technology, I think it makes it a little bit easier to try to apply it to your life. Like we all kind of got hit with that AI boom, and I just took what I was doing, the teaching and all the struggles, and said, here, how can I make this, apply to issues I'm having?
Well, I want to hear, so I have a background, like I was a troubled teen as well, like way more trouble probably than you were. I ended up in recovery at 32 and, ended up in behavioral health after a lifetime of restaurant industry about 12 years ago. And then kind of went into marketing and development, director development in nonprofit. I love the nonprofit space. And then all of a sudden ChatGPT hits and I was like a skeptic at first, but it didn't take long before I realized like, wow, I've really been strong in language arts my entire life and weak in math. And this thing kind of like levels up a lot of my deficiencies and I can use it as a superpower where other people can't for the things I'm really proficient at.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. The fact that it speaks English, right, the same as we do, it makes the accessibility piece it makes that accessibility piece there for anybody.
It's weird because I don't know. I know you're diving deep into this stuff, so I don't know how often you ask yourself, like, do I need to learn like the basics of writing code or SQL because data is so important as well? And those are questions I keep coming back to.
So we do a little bit of vibe coding, myself and the other Thomas, but we do have a third partner who is like, he gave out his whole life to do this project with us, and he's very technical. And I went to high school with him. So, he had a great coding job in Denver, Colorado, and he was, kind of leading some teams and stuff from what he did. And then we put together some backbones, him and I, in some pre-time. And like I said, whenever you start a space, like the amount of growth that we had whenever there's no other tools, it really was just affirmation that what we were doing had a ton.
Yeah, and it sounds like we've come up with the same idea there. You do need somebody who could do that around you, but I'm not sure that it's worth investing like completely relearning and going back and learning code myself actually, I would probably learn SQL before I learn code because data analytics is going to be just as important in structuring the agentic future of AI as any kind of code will. But the machines are catching up so fast that it's like, well, if I spent 2 years becoming proficient in this, by the time that 2 years is up, there's a good chance I'll just be able to use natural language to create this already.
Yeah. I mean, I'll even take you one step back is like, I've been telling my students for my entire life that I've been a teacher for 10 years here for my entire teaching career, that no matter what I can teach them, they can learn it on YouTube faster and probably more in depth than I could ever teach them. And that's just the reality of the world that we live in. And like, the same thing is true. It's just kind of amplifying it with this AI boom. It's like knowledge has now been accessible for so long and high quality information that's been accessible for so long. It's like now we're actually getting high quality tools in the hands of people. So everybody could be a creator if they really wanted to be.
Yeah, and that's where I started so when I was listening to your podcast, there's one thing that I'm not sure that we're aligned on, which is I'm not sure that like math, English, a lot of the core things that a school like Alpha School that's using AI just to teach the kids, that I mean we're seeing in workforce development that it's better at meeting people where they are and tracking them and adding their progress. I'm not sure where students are any different. Where I actually love the idea of teachers becoming more mentors and coaches, because of when I look back on the people that really influenced me as a kid in my high school career, before I went off to college, like most of them were coaches. A couple of them were teachers, but the coaches were more. So maybe that is the relationship to have with kids going forward, and building those soft skills. No computer is going to be able to replace, like the robots that will be able to do that are many generations away.
Yeah, I totally agree. You're right. If you find a student who is motivated, the data is there to support them, that they're going to learn with these AI models. And I think that that's great, as long as that's the direction that people want to head. I do fear, like, and maybe it's actually true today, right, is that teachers, we're not getting most of this teacher workforce because we're not getting the best workforce there is either. It's like when you pay people minimum wages and uninspiring, wages and all kinds of issues that come with teaching, you're not going to get the top of the workforce of people. And so to your point, like, I look around sometimes in these buildings that I have worked in, there's a lot of teachers that are uninspiring and are just there because they don't have another means to do something else. They have this teaching degree, they feel stuck. And if you're not inspired and if you're not there for the kids to pour 100% into that, there is a world where, like, the system that we have built is so fragile that AI will come to take those jobs, and it will do a better job, right, actually teaching the students. And maybe we just will add people that are more inspiring, more mentorship, like you're getting at. So I kind of see all sides of that. And I do know that teaching and our framework of education right now is just like really fragile, right? There's no valedictorians graduating that are becoming public school teachers. And it's been like that for 20 years. Like, right? The captain of the football teams in high school and that go on to the Ivy League school is up and are doing really well. They're having people in their lives tell them don't become a teacher, because despite it being a great job and despite it reaching, all these kind of rewards that money can't buy, it does put your life and it does put your family's life at like a lower quality than a lot of jobs do nowadays. It's interesting. It's like, I don't know.
Let me add one to that too. I don't want to come back all the time to this alpha school, but it is kind of the differentiating model, because I've talked to somebody from Magic School and School AI and your platform. Like these platforms, there's the idea of putting platforms into the traditional school model, or there's the idea like alpha school of just completely disrupting the traditional school model, and kids spend 2 hours a day in front of a computer and the rest of the time activities-based stuff. They're paying their mentors that they're bringing in $100,000 a year. That's one way to attract good talent. But I also work in EMS, and if you look in EMS, I would say you see the same thing you see with teaching, which is it is hard to get good employees nowadays. People don't want, except for firefighters and 911. And why? Because society still celebrates them. Yeah. Society has questioned cops forever and turned on them the same way they've kind of turned on teachers, and made everything that happens between them and their clientele that goes wrong is the cop's fault, not the criminal's fault, right? Which you oftentimes see in the classroom. Parents want to blame the teacher for their kid's behavior rather than accept that their kid needs it. So we could make teaching more fun and return to celebrating it as an essential element of our society, and that might start to attract talent without even having to be more expensive.
Yeah. I mean, I think it even comes at a higher level than that. It's like, yeah, the teacher's getting a lot of heat sometimes for parents, but like the school systems as a whole just fold to parents' demands. Like, if kids are failing, they just pass them along for no reason. If a parent doesn't like the teacher for whatever reason, they move that kid out of that classroom. And so it's like, right, it's not quite like policing, and it's not quite like these other services that our society provides, but it's like we've gotten so soft in our education that sometimes it doesn't even benefit the community to the best of its ability. Like if we have no standard of whatever that means.
And that just ends up hurting the kid. My wife is a social worker now, but was a teacher when I met her. She's an English teacher. And when our kids were at school, there was one set of teachers that were kind of pushing a political agenda that really didn't think belonged in the classroom. And I was ready to go talk to the school board about it. And my wife was like, "You don't think they're going to run into that when they get to work? Are you going to go to work and yell at their boss if their boss is being too political? Like, let them deal with somebody that sees things differently than them and figure out how to navigate that on their own." And I was like, you know what? That's actually a good point. When you're not making kids figure out how to navigate the system they're in on their own within the rules that system is set up, you're setting them up for failure, and to expect the workforce to cater to them that way. And that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's the exact point I give to discipline to the school districts that I've worked with. Is like, here we are, kids will be doing something in here, and we refuse to hold them accountable for any action. And what does that teach them is that when they go out into the real world, that there are repercussions. And I said, I would rather a kid get in trouble in school and we are very strict and we hold them to account. That way that they go out and they run into a police officer and they have some respect and semblance of how to act in our society, right? Like, if we treat schools as like these fairy tale lands that have no repercussions, we're going to get people that are delusional about our society as well pushed out from them. And I think we see that. I think we see that all the time. Like, we see that with grade inflation. We see that with discipline. We see that with all kinds of.
I don't disagree. And I think it's one reason why it's kind of interesting. The interview that will go before this one is with a vice principal from a Catholic school who's implementing school AI. And she has running into a lot of pushback against bringing AI into the school. And I can see that in religious schools, but I'm sad for them, because actually if technology can do a lot of the teaching stuff, like the values and morals, and I'm not even religious, but the ability to send your kid to a parochial school that's going to teach them some manners and some ethics and some values, I see that leveling up as time goes on, when you have technology alongside it.
Yeah. I think we are in for, just kind of on that point, I think we're in for a wave when parents find out that these companies that are putting students on bots for AI and stuff is just ChatGPT wrapped there in a company logo. And like, the more we get stories of this kind of technology manipulating young kids, I think school boards and that kind of stuff, we're only going to have far more pushback. These education companies, right, they don't own their models. So it's like they literally are just using the model that is provided to them. And so I am not surprised to hear that by that school AI interview.
Well, and you know what? That brings me to two thoughts. One is something that I heard you say that I really resonated with me, which is my kids are in one of the best school districts in Indiana, right? It's historically known as the producer. And the two kids that I have that are grown, one has a PharmD from Purdue and the other has a biochem undergrad from Purdue. So obviously that school system did them well. That's far above what their mother and I do. But now my 15-year-old that's in there, AI wasn't a thing when those older ones were there. And this school system is not even talking about AI to these kids, other than don't use ChatGPT to cheat when you write your writing assignments. And yet I just had a guy from rural Indiana. You have Conmigo. 95% of their kids are using Conmigo, which is not a large language model, but it's AI enabled, and teaching them how to use AI. And I heard you mention that you were frustrated that you'd gone to a conference just across the river where they're embracing AI, and yet your school district seems to be dragging their feet on.
Yeah, my district we have no policy in place for AI. I've even offered to give pre-Eduaide accounts to my own personal district, but they don't want to touch these kind of things because they feel like the risk outweighs the reward. And while I think, I see the other side of that for at least our product, I do kind of feel that way there are a ton of school districts who do not have the confidence of their community. And if you are going to make bold changes, they should be done with changes with data to support them. Chatbots and things like that do not have that right now. And so I could see a world where like there is paralysis from the decision maker side when it comes to installing certain pieces of whatever. Do you think it is ridiculous? So like at some level, we should be at least having like an AI class for students to at least introduce them to what it is and what the world is used for and stuff like that.
Well, and if you're not educating your educators, this is just like shadow AI use has got to be just as rampant, if not more, in K through 12 schools as it is in the workforce. The way that we look at it in healthcare is our employees are going to use it. They're going to realize it's a work hack. It can help them do things faster. So if we're not educating them and giving them policies, they may be putting HIPAA compliant, things that are HIPAA protected into a free Claude model, and now all of a sudden we're setting ourselves up for a lawsuit.
Exactly.
The same thing could happen in schools.
Oh, it's going to happen. I mean, I think that there's no question about it. I mean, there's absolutely zero question about it. Lawsuits will take place when it comes to student data because we don't know we don't know, right? And I guess that's part of it with the ton or limited. But, it's just like anything. Lawsuits will take place, people will cross the line. Bad things will happen, and it'll be somebody's fault. It'll probably be the teacher's fault or the school district or the company. So,
yeah, and so I don't disagree. And if you don't start exploring as a school district, as a school, if you don't start having those conversations. And I'll go back to one I just had with my boss yesterday, right? In this 29 person healthcare company, we do community paramedicine, and he's gotten pretty AI forward, and so have I, and so is our IT guy. But we're starting to we have policies for our employees, right? And so we start to come down to the question of, okay, if ChatGPT is has so much higher functionality for anything we want to do than Microsoft Copilot, should we get an enterprise level ChatGPT accounts for all of our employees? And my answer to that is no, because they're not profitable. And if they do something stupid and everybody sues them, they're going to declare bankruptcy. Microsoft may not be that functional, but I'll guarantee you that Microsoft is going to be able to pay its debts if it causes a problem somewhere down the road. Like, the courts are going to hold them accountable, right? It's going to come down to Microsoft. So those are the kind of conversations that every business and every school district should be having. Not should we use this technology, but how do we use this technology in a way that's safest for us and the people that we serve?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that because a lot of school districts are desperate for a solution. Like, they're already failing their students. They're already having bad test scores. They're already having, right? It's not like AI is coming into a field of education that was thriving beforehand. It's coming into a very desperate and ship that's on its way down. So I don't know if it is the lifeboat that we want it to be, but people will certainly try to make it be that.
That's an interesting divide between K through 12 and university level, right? Because university level, I think, would argue that their education system has great the way that it was set up, even though the numbers of people who are getting hired onto jobs and the debt that students are coming out with would disagree. But there are a lot of university teachers that I think still resist this technology because they think it's not up to par with their teaching. And I see the opposite of that with university level professors who embrace it as well. They leverage the technology to augment their teaching and ends up being better for doing so.
Yeah, I think that was sort of the original thesis of what we wanted to do with Eduaide too, was that, like, back to your point about training, teachers are probably the least, like, once you get your teaching degree, you're pretty much on an island for the rest of your life. Like, my school districts never bring me information that is pertinent to, like, actually educating myself. It's more about, like, local issues or things in our school that we really need to address, whether that's, like, community needs or, like, social, emotional needs of my district or something happened, right? There's never a time for teachers to actually learn. And so they will never just, like, if we stay in this chatbot forum, they'll never prompt it appropriately to get high quality instructional material. And that's where we try to take over with that. It's like, if you just go into ChatGPT and you say, make me a lesson plan, it's going to talk to you about learning styles and all these different debunked things in education that are out there on the internet that it was built off of, that these models were built off of, that just don't actually translate to real classrooms and real students and real teachers. So I don't know. It's like and so I guess the point I'm making is like, there is this huge divide in these different workforces and in these different ages of how to use this technology appropriately, right? Like just using it is not good enough, but using it in a high quality way is the only way to go forward.
Well, I don't disagree with you at all. I think, and this I've said this before, I actually think that the education space is in kind of a good space because there are different platforms that will help you do that. So in marketing, I've done some marketing consulting, and in marketing, like I can build you a custom GPT that if you just blanket social media, want to post for it, I can build it so that it has enough context that it understands the tone, voice, and style of your company and puts out stuff that's doesn't need a whole lot of human tweaking to be damn good, right? But like you said, if people are who don't understand all that are going to these tools just out of the box and thinking they can ask a blanket question to it and it's going to give them a magic answer that answers what they're looking for. If any of these models don't have the context of exactly what the end user is or what information to draw from, then you're not going to get optimized answers out of it at all.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, that's interesting. It's like even the big models are trying to pull back and figure out these teen safety things. So it's like,
well, when it comes to the big models, I have a theory on that. I do think, and Mustafa Solomon just said something about this, who's the lead at Microsoft of their AI. I think what you're going to see in the future is a lot of smaller models that are trained on industries or workloads rather than this idea. The foundation models right now are trying to get everybody. They want everyone on their, so they're trying to, they have like this sycophantic reward function based chats with people to keep them on their platform, like just general consumers. But then a CEO is asked, or a teacher's asking me questions and it's giving them the same bullshit back. And they're like, why did I follow your advice? You just told me what I wanted to hear. Like that's detrimental to everyone. But that's the kind of things kids need to be starting to learn, right? I think if we fear this technology is going to dumb them down, like I'm sure we fear the abacus, going from an abacus to however else we did math after that, to the calculator, or from, mapping the stars in the dirt to telescopes. We always figured that was going to offload our cognitive abilities. But really what it did was it offloaded some things that we used to do cognitively and opened us up to utilize new abilities and explore things on frontiers that were never possible before.
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, is that right? I guess it has to be, but like, is that a school's responsibility? And, I guess most people would probably think yes. But when you start to assign things like the authority of learning to a chatbot in a school, we had no clue how a student's going to take that premise and run with it in the real world. Like, we may just be conditioned kids. If we're going to start using these things in schools in certain ways, we may be conditioning kids to just believe the first thing they read. And if like we just do not know the full scope of what these interactions are going to do. And like, I know it sounds like fear mongering, but it's like, if I sit in my 7th grade science class, there's never a time I can ever see where I want my students to go directly to an AI model, take that information, and hold that to be true, and think that ends up being a good thing in the learning process. And right, like when we had Google search, we had to have multiple sources. We had to learn things like primary, secondary. We had to have all these different formats, and that is sort of how we trained people to use the internet back in the day. And now it's like, okay, this thing can tell you the answers, run with it. And I just think that is a really strange place to be.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's where we are, though. I think we're at this thing can tell you answers, learn how to evaluate it. I mean, I feel like we've been this way with news for a decade. Like, watch MSNBC or watch Fox, you'll get two different answers. I have to teach my kids to evaluate what they're hearing from the television set. Why wouldn't I have to teach them how to evaluate the outputs that they're getting from a machine?
I totally agree. I don't think that that's happening, but I agree that that's what should be happening. I don't think that that's what's happened, but I think that that's what should be happening. Should we be evaluating that, or are they just having conversations with make-believe characters and taking the facts that it skids out as their learning rule of the day? I think that that's really what's happening, more than, oh, this created this, this created this. Let's see how accurate this was compared to actual historical relevance. Like, that's not happening with the chatbots in schools.
And it never will if we don't start at least getting AI into schools and starting that conversation. Because that was something I was talking about, and I'm teaching a micro internship tomorrow for some high school students in Lafayette on how to create a custom newsletter producer. And I was like, to the people who asked me to do it, I was like, if you want a bonus, I want to teach these kids how to do evaluations, how to eval it, because I think that's the next skill set coming up. And I go to this agentic conference in DC last week, and sure enough, one of the head leads from Figma is there talking about how evaluating the outputs of the agents and large language models is like a hot button like job right now, and will be for many, many years to come.
I totally agree. The thing is, though, is like what we do in school is we don't always just teach, right? Like,
Critical thinking doesn't happen in a vacuum, and you have to have some sort of foundational understanding, and you have to have an authority to sort of give you that information. And that's what school is, and that's what trusted teachers are. And right, I'll teach you how to do math and how to read and all these things. And so I just think that it's a really blurry line with that authority. Like, I totally agree, students need to learn how to do these things. It would be nice to me if there were SLMs that were made only on educational material that I knew that a student could look at and use and was actually safe, rather than something rather than ChatGPT wrapped in somebody else's company, or Claude or wrapped in somebody else's company, because I don't know what that's going to return.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Khan Academy has proprietary software. I know there's education departments out there. I know Purdue has proprietary software because I talked to one of their philanthropy teachers who actually had some software engineers in her class who helped her develop a small language model that walks people through the writing process, and then you show your work just like you did on a math problem, rather than just saying, hey, write me an essay about this, or a research paper about this. It says, okay, let's form the thesis together, let's write a rough draft, let's evaluate that. So I mean, all that technology is possible, but I supply and demand is what creates anything in this country. And so if teachers and schools don't start to embrace this technology and then demand, after they see what the output is, what optimized output will look like, no one's going to be motivated to go build that software.
yeah. I just hope our schools don't make
Any more bad decisions. That's pretty much where I'm at, is like, if they follow the ball on AI because they don't know any better, you're going to see a lot more of 2-hour learning all over the place. And why wouldn't you send our kids there if we had the choice? I mean, look at the data, you know?
Because it's $50,000 a year. That's why.
Yeah, but right, exactly. But that'll change. I mean, right, when you only have to pay one teacher for so many kids, like the model itself is a profit-driven model, but that it doesn't have to be that way, right? And if the goal is just to educate kids, there's a much cheaper way than what we're doing right now, a much more efficient way. I think AI has an opportunity to move schools and like regain trust, like if you help your community. But I also think that if a bunch of people that don't know any better are just reading what the newest marketing ploy is and giving that to students without any understanding, worrying for just another disaster.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I think you're a science teacher, right?
Yeah.
What I see AI enabling is I love design thinking and design learning, right? Kids like science, but kids don't sit and just get lectured to in science class. They do in a whole lot of other classes. And I see first use case in schools as AI offloading some of that teacher's work so that teachers can become more interactive with their students in lecture-based environments and figure out a different way to approach teaching than just, this 9 to 5, like sit and memorize something and then regurgitate it on a test about a subject matter that you A, may not care about, and B, may never use. When you're going to have a machine that knows all that, definitely by the time you're graduated, it'll be cooked. Like, so let's get them up and moving and build those emotional intelligence skills and those leadership skills and those interoperability skills that we continuously hear employers say kids are not coming out of schools. they can't come to an interview unless it's on Zoom or they bring their parent with them. I mean, I've actually heard of kids bringing a parent to an interview. So we definitely need to do work with how humans interact inside of a school system.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's an exciting. I mean, so let me ask you this. I know your kids are little, right? But I have a 15-year-old. If one of your 15, 16-year-old students came to you and said, hey, I'm worried about how AI is going to disrupt the workforce, what should I study going forward? As I look at colleges, what should I focus on? What would your advice to them be?
My advice would be, what do you love? That'd be my next question. Like what do you love? Because there is a world, like I'm not great. And that's the funny thing is like, I'm just a middle school science teacher. So I don't know, but I can see this technology being extremely disruptive. All the major players that I talk about or that I listen to, and I'm like really, really kind of to some of the highest people in the country and what they're saying with AI. It's like, there's a world where this whole abundance agenda is getting pushed and where the software meets hardware with robotics. And we don't know what 10 years, like, right? And like, that's what even somebody who was just interviewing with Sam Altman said the other day, was that anybody who's guessing about what's going to happen in 3 years, it's total speculation. Like, we don't even know. If we hit AGI in 3 years, right, all your jobs are useless. It's like, I don't really know how I could predict that. So if a student came to me, I'd say, what do you want to do? And then they would tell me something like that. And I would say, whatever you could do to make somebody else's life better, that's probably going to be a good job for you to dip down the line. Something that satisfies you in that way, because I don't know how, it's hard to tell what the economy is going to be. If AI is supposed to be what is cut out to be and can do everything, it's going to happen. AI came out, everybody said, oh, blue collar jobs are done, blue collar jobs are done. Well, it turns out that they're going for all these lower level white collar jobs, and people who do HVAC and electricians have really, really great job security right now. It's like, so I don't know. I don't have an answer. It's like, I don't have an answer. Nobody has an answer. Like from the interviews that I was just listening to.
I think healthcare is going to be a pretty lucrative space going forward. I mean, it's going to be a long time before human beings are comfortable with robots providing them with healthcare. Like, that's going to take an entire generation that was born into a house that had robots in it and grew up with robots and is then therefore comfortable with robots. Until then, you're going to have a lot of humans who would rather have it.
What's that about driving? You think that way about driving too?
No, not at all. I think that I think the Waymo and self-driving trucks and all those things will take over those positions. I do think that robotics, because I pay a lot of attention to this stuff too, I do think robotics is struggling to get the dexterity for something like a plumber or an electrician. So some of those manual labor jobs that require a lot of dexterity, I think are safe for a long time or for quite a while. I don't know what happens when you embody large language models and allow them to learn from their environment, plus teach robots that much more rapidly, because they have that. I mean, that could exponentially change things. I think that when I talk to my daughter, I'm like, well, whatever field you're going to go into, make sure you understand where AI is at in that field and stay on top of it, and make sure that you understand how to leverage technology in that field. Like, she wants to be a dermatologist. So, okay, cool. There's still going to be dermatologists that leverage AI that are going to put you out of business if you don't know how to use it. So pay attention to it.
Can I ask you, you're going on about
with the surgery and robotics, and why you don't think,
are you okay with getting in a car that is autonomous? Like, what is your foundation for that?
I said healthcare. I didn't say surgery. So something as mechanical as surgery, yeah, I could see you're unconscious. But I think human beings, when they talk to a therapist, when they have a community health worker come talk to them, when they have a nurse come to their bedside, are not going to want Rosie the robot to come up and give them their nightly meds. I think that world is past. Maybe your kids will be cool with shit like that, but my kids will never be. And you and I will probably, unless we're weird or cool or like, early adopters, like, yes, you and I might be like, oh, cool, I have a robot nurse. But most people would be like, get that robot out of my room. I want a human.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say it is interesting. It's like, to me, it's like when the data starts to support for like a better outcome, that seems kind of easy and logical to follow. But yeah, like whenever there's things like healthcare, like the nuance of a interpersonal relationship, that is right, something that you can't quite quantify. And it's sort of the same thing with a teacher. It's like, well, yeah, value of a teacher. What is the value of a teacher? No student's gonna say, "Oh, he made me remember this, and I got an A on the test." It's always the things that aren't, like, there's no substitute for like the relationship.
Yeah, so discernment, leadership skills, the ability to talk to different people and meet them where they are, communication skills, project management, all that mixed in with an understanding of technology, I see as being very valuable going forward. I have told my daughter, I'm like, if you have a chance to take any kind of data classes, if I was you, I'd take those, because data analytics is going to be a core skill going forward. Does that mean that I want her to, if she's not a data-minded person, just go sit and do data analytics for the rest of her life? No, but she does need to have an understanding of it. Yeah, I smiled. I'm like, that would be really boring. But I have friends that think it's exciting as hell.
Yeah, I did too. Some strange characters. They're- no, but it's okay. I mean, everybody has their own thing that they love. I just don't know. I don't know. I don't have the answers, but I do think that conversions of this software with the hardware is going to be like, if we felt like ChatGPT was revolutionary, I think that we have a whole nother raid coming sooner rather than it's just totally upend our lives.
Yeah, and I think, when it comes to workforce development, from my standpoint, like I could see within 10 years, and I can't predict what the workforce will look like, but I could see within 10 years that the 30% of people who come like you, who come to work every day on fire, wanting to do their job in every industry, that 30% of people plus AI could run the country. And what we do with the other 70% of people who are just kind of collecting a paycheck, that becomes a conversation I actually see Bernie Sanders having some pretty, and I'm not a Democrat, but Bernie is having some pretty logical conversations around how do we address that going forward and make sure that it's not just a few. One other thing I'll say, I push back against the idea of hating Elon for the big deal here. Like Tesla wouldn't exist without Elon. I think what we're missing is it's the handful of board members and top shareholders that are becoming multi-billionaires and not trickling this down. It's not the Elons and the Sams of the world. It's the people just below them who are more than happy to rake in all this money and are not going to see it diffuse to the rest of us.
Yeah. Like, I just listened to you on talk about this abundance agenda, that there's going to be a world where jobs are so irrelevant and we're so profitable and so efficient as a society that we'll have to find better things to do with our time. So I don't know what that, you know what I mean? Like, that's what the lean people are saying. So.
And I think you hinted at it. So I have heard, I have a good friend that sometimes co-hosts a podcast with me, and she says maybe the job of the future is helping people who don't have a lot of direction and whose needs are financially met find purpose and meaning in life. How do you make somebody's life better? How do you help people not move into a Wall-E world, but actually take all that free time that's now on their hands and leverage it in a way that they find purposeful and meaningful, and then give back to one another and create a better society?
Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm a teacher. It's not for the pay, that's for sure. It was just because I thought I could help make a difference in the world. I mean, that totally resonates with me, but it is a little it's a little bit disturbing that we're talking about these things as, because they are actual realistic possibilities of our future and not sci-fi.
Yeah. If we would have had this conversation 5 years ago, we would have got laughed off of YouTube, right? Like, these two guys are nuts. Yeah, that is interesting. Okay. Well, I have really enjoyed talking to you. I'm going to put links to your LinkedIn and your website in the show notes. I always have a fun question that I end the show with, which is, if one sci-fi movie got it right 10 to 15 years from now, which one do you think we're going to be living?
I think probably some pieces of all of them, honestly. I think a little bit of I think that's kind of how our reality gets made, is that bits and pieces of every real piece of sci-fi kind of builds our reality, if that makes sense, right? Like whether it's an AI companion that you would see like that, like the robot AI companion that's smarter than you, like the Interstellar or something. Think that, right? Or the flying car, supposed to be flying cars coming here very, very soon. Like, I think all these things, I think bits and pieces of our imagination and sci-fi kind of actually build the world around us, ironically enough, and give us direction.
Well, I'm 52, so I'm 20 years older than you. And like I told you, I was pretty hard on myself the first 32 years. So I don't know how many years of this I'm going to get to see, but I can promise you by the time you lay down to die, like you're going to see a lot of changes in this world, my friend.
Yeah, that is true. And I hope I have a smile through all of them. So that's all we can hope for.
I think you're doing your best to make them better for everybody around you, and that's all we can ask for.
Yeah. Jason, well, it's been a pleasure to be on here, and thank you for kind of just giving me this space. So,
thank you very much. I'll talk to you again, Thomas.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
Whoa, man. Things just get real? Looks like this dude's riffing on 11 Labs. Is this guy using 11 Labs? And I wonder what model he'll work with next week? Yeah, ride that wave.